Right after Stairway to Heaven, Lotta Love is arguably one of the most recognizable songs from the Zeppelin catalog. The hypnotic riff is one to end them all guitar riffs. That 5-note introduction is all you need. The minute you hear the intro, you know it's time for a sonic ritual of primitive intentions. It's been almost 25 years since I heard it for the first time back in high school. It was a teenage bat signal, the Zepp signal, a mighty release, hormonal permission into embracing your inner madness, desires, and courage to pick up the phone and call that chick you liked without any fear of parental unit intervention. Lotta Love remains undefeated. If Zeppelin 3 made me want to learn to play the guitar, Lotta Love made me want to perform on stage and forever sealed the deal for me as a Zeppelin fan. To this day it has the same effect whether it's Spotify, my home stereo, or driving to the record store to get more copies of Into the Outdoor for my collection. I'll have a big smile on my face and do some air guitar pageisms. Now I'll tell you a little secret. This is my favorite Led Zeppelin song. You'll find me playing guitar on an empty stage to the sound of the studio recording, or playing it for the millionth time at jam night. I know there's the Rain song, Kashmir, Achilles' Last Stand, Carousel Ambra, When the Levee Breaks, the list goes on and on, but these work in very specific circumstances. Lotta Love, on the other hand, is like an antidote that changes the mood and makes you feel better instantly. You got fired from work, you play it. You read about the economy and realize there will be no pension funds in the future, you play it. You spot a nasty fire at 3 a.m. on a property adjacent to your house and wait for the firefighters to arrive while wondering if it was an inside job to clear the lot and begin construction of a new apartment complex. You play it. A track that helped me get pumped up at my old telemarketing job in 2006, where our bosses would yell to us, "Hit the phones, guys." Jimmy Page's iconic guitar sound got me to always be closing.
Always be closing. Always be closing.
A true song of hope where the city grows colder every day. It has no political meaning, no profound statement, but that's where the magic lies. It just kicks ass and doesn't pretend to change the world, but it represents the power within to feel alive. As you know, I've done several making of album series here on my channel, but for Zeppelin 2 I decided to take a different approach, with a separate episode for Lotta Love exclusively, so I can dissect every bit of information, as this is not just an album opener, but a world of its own. From music inspiration behind it to production secrets. The track that was a game changer for Led Zeppelin, they say anybody could have recorded this back in 1969. Well, maybe that's true, but nobody could make it sound like a stereo atomic bomb. Warning, you're gonna hear the same riff a lot on this episode. So let's go back to schooling, without yearning nor fooling. This is the story of Lotta Love.
I don't think the people in Stevenage can hear what I say.
First, let me set the record straight because I know there are many rock fans out there who love to discredit the band. Led Zeppelin did not steal the music for Lotta Love and never had any legal issues regarding their instrumental creation. As you will see later in the story, the 1985 lawsuit happened because of Robert Plant's creative borrowing in the lyrics department, not the riff. The story of Lotta Love begins in 1962. 18-year-old Jimmy Page was a part of Neil Christian and the Crusaders. Some 4,000 miles away in Chicago, a recording session took place over at Chess Records. The song was You Need Love, written by blues musician Willie Dixon. Just like on You Shook Me, he had Muddy Waters sing over the instrumental. Now the single didn't do that well at record stores in neither America nor the UK, but among its fans was a teenage Jimmy Page who was to begin his art college period in Surrey. Also paying close attention to the song was featured Small Faces singer Steve Marriott. The Small Faces released their debut album in May 1966. The record featured their own take on Willie Dixon's You Need Love as You Need Loving, credited to Steve Marriott and bassist Ronnie Lane, with no mention of Willie Dixon nor Muddy Waters. As of 2015, the song had not been properly credited, nor the band was ever taken to court for it. Now, it was an obvious choice for them to record it, as it was a vital component of their live setlists, and just about every mod in Britain knew this song. Steve Marriott's powerful vocals left a lasting impression on a then 18-year-old Robert Anthony Plant, trying out the music business game with his band Listen and soon-to-be-formed Band of Joy. One of the earliest versions of Led Zeppelin's Lotta Love guitar motif can be traced back to the American rock and roll standard, Hey Joe. I know what you're thinking, Jimi Hendrix? But no, the first London recording of this song was done by Tim Rose in early 1966. Hendrix followed with his famous take, released in December that same year. Hey Joe became a ubiquitous riff and song at jam sessions, and there were many versions including Johnny Halliday, Cher, and Robert Plant's Band of Joy, with John Bonham on drums. The Hey Joe motif morphed in the hands of Donovan for his sixth studio album, The Hurdy-Gurdy Man, with studio personnel including Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones. Check out Side 1, Track 5, Get Thy Bearings.
Get your bearings.
One last possible trace of inspiration for Lotta Love would be the Beatles' Helter Skelter. From the guitar pattern on the intro to the main groove, it signals into what Zeppelin came up with less than a year later. By the time Led Zeppelin was formed and playing their first North American tour in January 1969, a song like Lotta Love was just waiting to happen. We can trace the Zeppelin origin to How Many More Times, which was their live jam laboratory that the band would extend into 20-minute hard rock blues workouts. The instrumental sections right before the Bolero and the Hunter portions marked the birthplace for Lotta Love's iconic riff. Because these segments moved around E5 and D5 power chords, it was a logical extension to play many slick variations on stage. The studio version of How Many More Times saw into the future of whole lot of things to come, with Robert's screen right before the band came back to announce their arrival in the rock and roll business. Basic rhythm tracks recording for Lotta Love took place April 10th through April 19th, 1969 at the famous Olympic Studios, London. Let's begin with Jimmy Page's guitar. It was a Gibson Les Paul, but which one? A game-changing weapon that soon replaced his main instrument, the Dragon Telecaster. This has been the subject of many theories. When did Page acquire his Les Paul? There are two possible scenarios. Scenario 1. As we all know, Page bought his Sunburst Les Paul guitar from James Gang's own Joe Walsh, after he insisted Jimmy get it for his live arsenal. While the story is true, the actual dates in countless publications online, for this matter, are wrong. Joe Walsh has been quoted saying James Gang opened for Led Zeppelin when they first came to America, and this is not true. Vanilla Fudge was the first American band to share the bill with them. While Joe Walsh befriended Page in 1969, his band was very busy playing the Ohio rock circuit throughout the entire month of January. I checked the James Gang record books, and the only chance Joe Walsh had to take a day off to catch Zeppelin on stage was February 7th, 1969, when they played Chicago's Kinetic Playground, which is a 5-hour drive from Ohio. It was here that a possible meeting between Walsh and Page could have taken place, leading to the Gibson Les Paul deal. Fun fact, James Gang did not open for Led Zeppelin until November 1969. Now, scenario number 2. Let's say Joe Walsh met Jimmy Page in time for Zeppelin's Fillmore West and Winterland shows, which took place April 24th through the 27th. If you check concert records for James Gang, they played Michigan on the 19th, then Ohio on the 25th and 26th. So Joe Walsh could have traveled west to California in between, but Zeppelin played their last show of the UK tour of spring on April 17th, to then catch a plane to America. This leaves us with the days before the Fillmore West as a possible setting for a Walsh-Page guitar sale. Now if this happened, then Lotta Love's rhythm tracks were recorded with Jimmy's Black Beauty, a guitar he had since 1962. So what's the verdict? We can find the answer on Jimmy Page, The Anthology, where he said the band worked on Lotta Love when they got back to England midway through February 1969. Page used his most recent purchase, the Les Paul No. 1 that he got from Joe Walsh, which means there is a very strong chance the sale was done at Chicago's Kinetic Playground. Page's new Les Paul guitar was kept away from the stage until April. Jimmy played all the February and March 1969 dates with his beloved Telecaster. Vanilla Fudge's drummer Carmina Peace helped John Bonham get an endorsement deal from Ludwig, thus he got a brand new Maple kit around February. If you want to see the band that recorded Lotta Love at Olympic Studios, think the Danish TV footage, but with Jimmy Page playing a Les Paul instead. Jimmy's riff on Lotta Love was sort of a Frankenstein creation out of 4 Zeppelin cuts from their debut. You have the opening E5 power chords of Good Times, Bad Times, the rapid fire attack of Communication Breakdown, a 6-note riff from Your Time Is Gonna Come, and additional layering from How Many More Times. Take all this, play 63 shows across the UK and North America, and you get Lotta Love. Because Jimmy loved acoustic guitar textures with open string ideas, he added a double note on the riff for Lotta Love, that being a D note on the 5th string, joining forces with the 4th. This accentuates the orchestral effect and builds tension, followed by a 7-pulse steam train continuum on the low E string. Now it's interesting to note Jimmy's chord attack on the call and response section. Instead of an E5 power chord, he plays a very 1960s style E major crunch, similar to what we hear in stuff like Wild Thing. This was a brilliant move once he added the minor scale guitar solo, which creates a chiaroscuro sonic illusion, major against a minor chord. The song's middle section had Jimmy detuning the strings for the crazy stretch sounds we hear, which didn't make things easier. It was like abstract painting through a Les Paul. Last but not least, Jimmy played a variation on the riff at the very end with a brief counter melody to the main motif. He added an A and A flat sequence, making the A flat note create an automatic E major chord with the open 6th string. That's Page's Guitar Army orchestration within a single riff. But Jimmy's guitar vision was only made heavier thanks to the genius bass attack of John Paul Jones using a pick to expand the riff's explosive dynamics. It was a guitarist's approach to the bass while retaining his unique studio session skills and harmonic knowledge. Some folks may think this stuff is easy to play. Think again. Jones was a vital contributor to carry out Jimmy's 6-string plan in full force. just when you think the instrumental couldn't get any more powerful, we have John Bonham's commanding entrance into a funk-inspired beat as an homage to both R&B and soul music he loved so much. To play this hard with swing and tasteful groove is what cemented Bonham's legacy forever. Contrary to a standard 4x4 rhythm, he holds back the second snare hit by half a note, thus creating the bounce effect back into the one or the first pulse. This is why most cover bands can replicate this song as they should, because they are stuck with a 4x4 mindset, or maybe they just listen to Bat Out of Hell too much. It's bad for you. Now, because Bonzo had guitar ears, meaning he would mime guitar parts on his drums, he could translate Jimmy's Les Paul idea to percussive perfection where most drummers could have play or overplay a tasteless drum groove. In that sense, Bonham was what Ringo was for the Beatles. Yes, he was far a more athletic and explosive player than Ringo, but Bonzo was a musical drummer first and foremost. One of the nightmares in tribute bands is when the drummer can't play funk to save his life. No swing, no Bonham. His contribution and arrangement was crucial. There's no Whole Lotta Love without Whole Lotta Drums. John Bonham played percussion and shaker overdubs on this track to augment the accents. You can hear him do a middle section pattern on his right cymbal, which seems to be a 6/4 polyrhythm against the main 4x4 beat. Bonzo's cue into Jimmy's guitar solo is the ultimate drum fill and natural extension of Zeppelin's debut. Traces of it can be found on Your Time Is Gonna Come. Whole Lotta Love's early rhythm track version didn't have the space echo middle section worked out, but a hi-hat count with little to no special effects. You can check this on Led Zeppelin II's companion disc, track 1, Whole Lotta Love Rough Mix with Vocal, featuring an early take by Robert Plant trying to find the right phrasing. Robert was of course inspired by Steve Marriott's singing style from You Need Loving. Many years later he admitted he wanted to record the Small Faces number one day, and well, he chose Led Zeppelin's finest hard rock moment for it. Now, Steve Marriott himself heard the song eventually, and wasn't angry about it, but encouraged Robert to keep going. So this rough mix was all Jones, Plant, and Bonham heard until the album's release, as Jimmy Page worked out the final psychedelic voyage separate. His bandmates had no idea what the final product would be. Past the Olympic studio sessions, Led Zeppelin was back on the road for a busy schedule of 87 concerts until their album release in October 1969. Contrary to most rock bands who wanted to play their future hit single as soon as possible, Whole Lotta Love was only done 5 times on stage before the album's release in October. The track was mostly played as an encore. Now, they had another studio session chance with the song through their 4th BBC session recorded on June 24th. This recording was key for Page in developing his overdubbing plans for the track, and it's one of the definite BBC session highlights. You can check my video on the making of the BBC sessions for a deep dive on how these recordings came to be. So they took time off the road for overdubs, right? No. Studio overdubs for Lotta Love were recorded while Led Zeppelin was on tour in the United States and Canada. They carried the tapes around in their luggage in full traveling band style, adding bits and pieces at various studios. It's a miracle nothing got lost in the process. Now Jimmy added slide guitar work on the song's chorus for a cinematic feel, somewhat inspired by How Many More Times, but in reverse. Robert's final vocals were recorded as well as his expressionistic high-range flair for the middle section. Now we can hear him laugh at the very beginning. It sounds like a heavy tobacco smoker laugh, which probably eased the tension before recording one of the greatest vocal tracks in classic rock history. A similar instance can be found on Zeppelin's Black Country Woman, where you can hear Robert do a similar sound. Now leaving Robert's laughter on the final mix shows Jimmy's art school background. Modern day producers and Dream Theater would cut that out, not Jimmy Page. He went for the artisanal side of recording, where authenticity beats any corporate rules.
Honey, you need ash. I'm gonna give you my love. Oh, want a whole lot of love. Want a whole lot of love. Woman, you need love, and let's see him.
Now in regards to Lotta Love's middle section, Jimi Hendrix's sound wizard Eddie Kramer played a vital studio role, helping Jimmy Page achieve his sonic architecture design. Kramer was already impressed with Zeppelin's debut and knew Jimmy from his session days, including Donovan's Hurdy-Gurdy Man. One possible inspiration for Lotta Love's space section may be Jimi Hendrix's 1983 From Electric Ladyland. Eddie Kramer and Jimmy Page worked out the knobs in quite a manual process of faders, volume control, and panning frequencies left and right to achieve the desired and ambitious landscape. To do this in real time is mind-blowing. The smallest mistake could jeopardize the tapes and their patience. This was synchronization at its finest, using the studio as instrument. Now Jimmy also used the famous theremin for the strange galactic sounds we hear. While its sound was made popular in 1966 through the Beach Boys' Good Vibrations, Page took it to new heights of exploration. Years before Pink Floyd's On the Run and Brain Ticket Psychedelia, Jimmy seemed to capture the late 60s mystery tour in full. Not only was the middle section a treat to the senses, but every element tells a story. It's not just random sounds, but carefully prepared spaces that follow the beat. It is a movie within a song. Now Jimmy's famous guitar solo was played through a 75 open wah-wah pedal position, plus thick fuzz gain with reverb added in post-production. Now in the same style as their debut on You Shook Me, vocal bleed can be heard at some points in the recording. By vocal bleed I don't mean Robert actually bleeding, but because of his strung pipes, his frequencies would be heard through the headphones while recording overdubs. The good old days where musicians and engineers left organic sounding stuff on the master tapes.
Just a little bit.
Okay, now let's take a look at Robert's lyrics for Lotta Love. Plant sends a request for peace to a young woman who needs to calm down. We can assume they had a heated discussion. He is sincere and determined to send her to an educational institution where she can learn valuable life lessons on relationships. Robert then reminds her that romance might be the solution to her problems, as she could be repressing primal energy that may lead her to the freedom she truly desires. The chorus line of Lotta Love cleverly embraces a shared interest in dopamine-fueled adventures. Plant speaks of humanity's quest for knowledge, which ties into the yearning theme. The lyrics match the song's relentless attack, creating a sense of urgency. After the middle section, Robert returns to the cooling off phase, admitting to codependent behaviors. He suggests his partner take full advantage of his romantic abilities. He's willing to experience a whole lot of love. He further explains this by stating, "Woman, you need love." Plant invites his partner to shake and celebrate his return, using the metaphor of the back door to suggest forgiveness after a nasty fight. The song ends with Robert's insistence on creating a peaceful environment where things can cool down for the sake of sanity. Robert Plant sang his heart out on the final take. It was a quantum leap above his original rough mix recording, which shows the ever-growing confidence playing gigs in between brings. Now, contrary to How Many More Times, where Robert's dramatic scream goes low to high, Whole Lotta Love does it in reverse. He starts off with a high note and then sounds like he's jumping from a cliff into an infinite rock and roll spiral, or Britain's 70s tax policy. The band comes back, and with it, they had a feature set closing tune that would have the crowd on their feet, begging for an encore. Jimmy Page, the producer, managed to contain the explosive energy in a cohesive mix, where everyone stands out with enough space to shine. This song in the hands of your average 60s producer would have been ruined. Page was the right man for the job. His producing skills were the asset most guitar peers lacked. Page knew how to present the band's music, a true representation of what they were at that time and place. Led Zeppelin II was released on October 22nd, 1969, and there was no rival. There was no other track that sounded like Whole Lotta Love that year. The band was to take the reins of rock and roll. There were great albums, of course, but production-wise, it all paled in comparison, especially the drum sound. A 7-inch single saw the light of day on November 7th, 1969, adding to the Zeppelin craze despite trimming down the song to 3 minutes and 12 seconds, which meant the middle jam was cut. Atlantic Records' Jerry Greenberg convinced the band to go for a single. Greenberg supervised the edit and was also responsible for Yes doing the same thing with 1971's Roundabout. Now for some controversy, although there are no direct sources to prove it, and I really like this song too. Canadian rockers were allegedly inspired by a riff they came up with on stage, which led them to record American Woman in August 1969. The guitar riff is similar to Whole Lotta Love. I checked the record books and their story doesn't match the supposed venue where their discovery took place. My best guess is they heard Zeppelin play Toronto in February and got their idea based on the How Many More Times live jam. American Woman's intro seems to also be inspired by Zeppelin II's Bringing It Home, and it's no wonder it became one of the biggest hit singles once it was released in early 1970. When your song has a similar motif to Led Zeppelin's Whole Lotta Love, it's bulletproof. Now, Jimmy Page would only come back to the E5 chord or E minor dominant composition style for 2 more numbers for the remainder of Zeppelin's catalog. The Rover employed both the E5 and D5 chords plus a funky pentatonic riff at the end, and Achilles' Last Stand used an E minor and D5 chord call and response motif.